everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to our December Economic Development Authority meeting. We're glad that you took this time out of your busy holiday schedule to be with us today. We're going to begin with our roll call, and then we'll start with our meeting.
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Hines,
Here.
Ms. Jiggets,
Here.
Mr. Kelly is
Absent.
got some surgery. Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum and we're going to begin. But before we begin, I'm going to let the floor lead way for Dr. Patton, our city manager, and she would like to make an announcement.
Yes, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the EDA, it gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce to you the new Director of Economic Development for the City of Portsmouth, Mrs. Mallory C. Butler. Mrs. Butler comes to us with over 20 years of experience in economic development. Mrs. Butler has served this city as the interim Director of Economic Development for 3 different tenures, including her last tenure for almost 6 months. It is with great pleasure that we have brought Mrs. Butler on board as the new Economic Development Director with all credentials, including international certification, which is not the norm for all Economic Development Directors. So with a warm welcome, I present Ms. Mallory Butler.
Well, thank you very much, but you embarrass me. And as I told someone recently, I do a much better job of promoting Portsmouth than I do of promoting myself. So I'm very excited to be able to continue to promote the city of Portsmouth and take what I've been doing to the very next level. I'm excited. We have some great opportunities ahead of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that introduction, which allows me to segue into my next part of the agenda with that same sentiment. We feel the same way that Mallory will now be serving as our director. And with that in mind, the commissioners would like to present our director with a little Christmas gift. And we did stay within the limits of the requirements. Nobody's in trouble. So that's for you. And then we also have one for your staff, Lee and Betty. And
Well,
their
thank
names
you.
are-
Thank you very, very much.
It is the consensus of all of the commissioners, because that was one of the requirements as well, and it has been spearheaded by Commissioner Jiggets came to us with the idea, so thank you for coming up with a great idea.
Thank you very much.
One more thing to move.
That's okay. Well, actually, since we're here, I'll just carry these down.
I'll help you with those.
And I guess a point here would be, if the commissioners have not seen where the new Economic Development Office is after this meeting, Mrs. Butler will happily walk you down. They will move this coming Saturday.
That's right.
But the space is pretty much ready.
You can see the empty shell today, and then next month you can see what we've done with it.
Yes, looking forward to it. Okay.
New furniture built out there.
There we go. Okay, now we'll start with our minutes of our November 17th meeting, and our commissioners have had an opportunity to review them already, but if there are any changes to be noted, we'll hear those now.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
Apologies for being late.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and we'll get a roll call vote for approval.
Mr. Bailey, these are the November minutes.
Oh, approved, yeah.
Yep. Mr. Hines.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets,
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson. Motion approved, minutes approved.
Okay, now we'll take a look at our financials for the September, October, and November months. We'll hear our presentation from our finance department, Alice Kelly.
Thank you very much. I know we had 3 months worth of financial statements in your packet. In the November year to date, we have a change in net position of $130,443 reduction. So our net position at the end of the period is $14,657,000. We have obviously our investment properties and development property details in the back, and then we have our cash, and we are also doing a detailed listing of the 300,000 of improvement grants in the back. And I just received 2 days ago a couple more of these that I need to add on to the program grants. But with that, is an entertain any questions?
Commissioner Hines.
I don't really have a question, I have more of a comment. I just want to thank you for, I know we kind of give a little bit of a challenge with the year-end closeout and audits and things of that nature, and just want to thank you for accommodating our request regarding
I do have
the
an-
situation of the financials. So thank
I
you.
do have an accountant now that she's going to be assigned to help work on these, and I will review them. It's hard to do them and review them at the same
Yes.
time.
Well,
So
I just wanted to
I
thank
have
you.
assigned it. Thank you.
That's a great comment, Commissioner Hines, and we all appreciate the effort that's put into that as well. Commissioners, do you want to vote on these in a block? Or are we gonna look at them separately, or what's your pleasure?
I think it'd be fun to vote on them in a block. Things along.
I just had
Commissioner
one,
Thompson.
I just had one question. We're looking at the grants and the program budget versus available budget. We have the column G for encumbered and paid, and it's combined together. If there's any way that you could show those, we had a way to differentiate it.
Oh, sure, sure.
So we know which ones were encumbered versus which ones were paid.
Definitely.
Especially if they default on the application and don't meet the time requirement, we'll know what's actually still in our coffers versus what's accounted for.
Very easy to do.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioners, with that being said, we entertain a motion to approve.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. And we'll get a roll call vote.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion approved. The September, October, and November financials are approved.
Thank you, Commissioners. Now we'll move to our old business, and up first, we have properties for resale, the listing agent, along with our RFP process, and we'll hear from Mrs. Butler.
Thank you. The procedure or the timeline is on track. The members of the ad hoc committee turned in their evaluations of the responses to the RFP, and we are working through the procurement office, and due to the holidays and our department's move, it looks like we're going to aim to have the interviews for the week of January 11th. So I will be in touch with the commissioners and the rest of the ad hoc committee to set that up as soon as purchasing has a day designated. So we'll look at either the 11th or the 13th of that week to do the interviews, and then hopefully be in a position to bring a recommendation to the full body on your January 19th meeting for your consideration and approval.
Good job, and good work. Glad that it's going well for us and for the city. Okay. Next up, we'll have the Commons at Portsmouth Center, our Victory Village, and we'll hear from Mr. Ash.
Commissioners, you have been provided a letter that was previously submitted by the developer asking for an extension on their time to meet their commitments. I understand that that letter was submitted during the pendency of the rezoning application. And so it's my understanding that this letter was held in abeyance while the developer moved forward with the rezoning application. We just present that to you because that was delivered over to the commission, and now that the rezoning application has been addressed, we wanted to make sure you were aware of that, and we will have further discussion with you about those matters, as well as some other matters in closed session with regard to Victory Village.
Thank you for that information. Commissioners, any concerns or questions?
Well, my understanding is we'll address it in closed session, is that not correct?
There are other things related to it, so.
Right, so we can just address the whole thing in closed session, I would think.
Okay, thank you. We'll move now to our new business, section, and, that is the Renaissance Hotel, and we'll get an update from Mr. Miller.
Sure. As you're aware, the Renaissance Hotel, the legal structure there is that EDA is actually the fee title owner of the hotel and the conference center and the garage, and has a ground lease structure with the hotel operator. And we are going to, in the new year, we're going to take sort of an in-depth look at all those documents related to the hotel. It's a fairly complicated structure. Put together an outline just so everyone's clear on exactly how the structure works and how everything flows. But the immediate issue on the Renaissance is with respect to the parking garage. With the parking garage, we have an agreement between the hotel and EDA, where EDA agrees to maintain and provide parking in the parking garage for the hotel. And then we have a second agreement between EDA and the hotel management company, essentially, where the management company actually agrees to provide the maintenance and the operation. So EDA is sort of in the middle of two agreements. That second agreement, where the hotel management company actually agrees to come in and provide, operate the parking garage, was set to go for, it had a term of 15 years from the date the hotel opened, which means that its term runs this January. Now, we've had the hotel representatives in a couple times to discuss how to proceed, whether to stick with the same type of agreement, whether to change the agreement at all, in the process of going forward from this January. But there's been so much turnover. I think they came in, they met once with Patrick, they came in, they met once with Chuck. There's been too much turnover to really get a settled idea. So what we'd like to do is extend the existing agreement for 3 months from this January to this April. And in the process of that, have the hotel representatives in again, come up with a structure that we think everybody can agree on for the operation of the garage, and then bring that back to you in the April-May timeframe. So what we look for today would be just the consensus of the board to go ahead and add that 3-month extension right now so we can get a new agreement in place.
I think it's pretty much a no-brainer, considering the move that we're undergoing, given as well as an opportunity to get settled. 3 months seems appropriate.
Do you feel that 3 months might be a little ambitious, considering the holiday and things of that nature? Should we act on maybe a 6-month? I do contracts for a living. I know sometimes 3 months can be very, very difficult to meet. So, I mean, I'd like to maybe even ask if 6 months is probably more appropriate, and if an agreement struck between them and there, then we can revisit at that point.
Okay, I know.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Yes.
What if we let the lease go? What would be the implications if the EDA took over the running of the garage? I park in that garage and I don't see much maintenance going on there.
Right. Well, I think we'd probably have to come back to you and give you all the implications of that, because all the agreements, it's a condominium structure. All the agreements, the 2 lease agreements for the conference center and the hotel, and the agreement for the operation of the garage are all intricately tied together. And we'd have to figure out, the engineering department would have to be heavily involved in the maintenance of the garage. So I think as part of coming back to you with a proposed agreement or options for an agreement, I think that would be the best time to get into, here are the options and here are the permutations and combinations and possible results of each approach.
I think we should look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, without putting Ms. Butler under pressure, but it just, I mean, if you need me to get involved, I have no issue with it. I mean, I park in the garage. I know that when I have guests come in from out of town, we pay for them to park in there. I mean, what are the ramifications if we let it go and let the revenue come back to the city and the EDA?
And definitely during special events, the hotel is actually selling park space during events as well. It's definitely a moneymaker.
And I think the 3 to 6 month time frame for the city attorney's office to draft a new contract for them would definitely give us time to brainstorm on some of those ideas, so, at the 6-month mark, we can make a decision on how we proceed, so,
Even further, the 6 months would give them a little bit more time to look at some other iterations like he's talking about as well. I think 6 months.
I'd like to make a motion.
Commissioner Thompson and then we'll.
The current lease ends when?
January.
The end of January. And
It's operating agreements.
right, and your recommendation is extended to the end of April.
Yeah.
Yes, although no objection to 6 months, if the board's comfortable with that.
Give them more time.
That's certainly, I mean, that's a valid point.
So the recommendation would be for 6 months to
For 6
extend it
months.
Through the end of June.
July,
Or
to the end of July.
End of the fiscal year, maybe,
we can just call it the end of the fiscal year.
yeah,
And that way, that would, June 30th.
right.
That would give us some additional time over that 3 months' time. Would be a logical spot if we did ultimately decide that the city wanted to kind of take over that piece. But
You heard the discussion, do we need a motion to move, or is this for
Well,
information to the
let me
city?
just say, I'm not really on board for extending it to June 30th. Now, Jeff, were you involved with the original? Okay, none of the people here that were
So that
involved.
makes
It was
it
done in
difficult,
2001 when the hotel opened.
and so that makes it difficult for
It's
the
15 years old.
And I think part of the reason I say that 3 months is a little bit ambitious, is the fact that a lot of the same players aren't even here.
Right.
So they're gonna need some time to even investigate what's there, investigate, all the components, like you're saying, it sounds very intricate, a lot of moving parts. I certainly think if
6 months.
And there have been changes on the hotel side as well. I mean, the original hotel owner is not at the table. The hotel has been sold, so there've been.
Twice.
That's right. So
Yes.
there've been a lot of changes on both sides.
That was a point I'm glad that you mentioned. The hotel has been sold from its original managing and operating company in between that time.
A lot of new players.
We could certainly,
He may finish it before 6 months.
the language perhaps for the extension should be up to,
Yeah.
so that it arrives earlier, so that we don't
Okay, now I could.
create the language with the hotel that, just as it got carte blanche at that time, we were able to do it by the end of February, and when we moved, we certainly could if we just worded it appropriately, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Commissioner Bailey and then Commissioner Hines.
Who stands to benefit?
Who stands to benefit? The city?
No, I'm saying that if we break the lease, I mean, my thing is that it's been in place since 2001, it's coming to an end of January. We're now in the middle of December, we're going into Christmas. Now we're scrambling to go and give everyone an extension. I understand, we've had some turnover within the city. From a business owner, I mean, if we break that lease and say, we're done, the lease is done. Again, what are the implications here? I mean,
Yeah.
surely,
That's why we
You
give
don't
ourselves
know.
some time. Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Because we don't know, we don't know really if they're in a profit margin or a profit loss. I mean, we, have some idea, but, to fully and appropriately investigate the whole situation, I think this time frame would give us that time to do that and to make a logical decision about how we proceed.
And many of that kind of lease, if you're going to break it, there's a 90-day that you have to let the person know, the entity, that we're gonna break the lease, but it's a 90, it's not just tomorrow I can say, I'm out of it. It's a lot of pieces that legal must look at.
Commissioner Thomason?
Yeah, just, I'm just, feel like we're so blessed with having a very diversified, the questions, and I like Commissioner Bailey's question, if there's revenue to be made,
Yeah.
that's a good perspective to bring to the table.
I pay XL Nushbaum $155 a month to park in there.
No, I think it's a great consideration. The consensus of this commission at our last planning session, though, was to focus on some strategic areas, and was that although we would love to be in revenue generation through property management or rental, it was just not something that this commission or the staff was in position to do, and that's why we've shied away from it. So it's not that we shouldn't consider it, and thank you again for bringing that perspective, but I just want to remind us all that, especially with the demands on staff, that's not a full staff at this time, adding for them to have to become now property managers, could be a heavy demand, so just wanna make sure
At this
we weigh
time.
that properly. Yes.
All right, Commissioners.
One last stupid question.
No stupid questions.
What
He
what
just
does
wants
the
us,
Ren-
he just wants us to
We
say
like
that.
it.
what does the Renaissance Hotel pay us monthly?
Yeah, I was
That
waiting
is
for
their lease for both the air right, their
So it's
their
$125?
condo for the garage and the convention center.
Do we know what the breakup is between air and ground?
I believe the hotel, the convention center, I think, is 75,000 and the garage is 50, but I'd have to go back and check. It's a combined 125.
It's in the leases, I'm not sure exactly what it is.
And they're current,
So
and
it's
stay
not,
current.
it's not that we're without revenue here.
Yeah.
It's a heavy chunk of change, $50,000 that they're paying us.
Which is a pass-through to the city to pay the
Right.
debt
Correct.
on that property.
Really couldn't do it.
That's a chunk of change.
Yeah, but you don't know if you're really making any money or not by the time you pay the bond debt.
That's
Right.
right,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
right.
You could be losing money. That's why you need time to come back and make that
Exactly.
presentation.
I mean, if I may,
Yes.
I just have, at the conclusion of this time, have our attorneys bring us just a whole full snapshot of the
Yes.
the agreement that we're talking about, but also the entire agreement as a whole. So, everybody that's new can really kind of wrap their hands around
Right.
this. I think would be an appropriate investigative time of the whole agreement.
Do you think that it's appropriate to make a motion that up to 6 months, or we want to say within that?
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months, we will agree to the extension.
Yes. We'll hear your motion.
All right, well, I make the motion that we agree to the extension up to 6 months.
Second.
Any roll call votes?
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries and the extension for 6 months is granted,
Up to
6 months.
Thank you for good, healthy discussion on that, and we're looking to see what that brings us in the new year. We're done now with our new business. We also to.
One reminder, if I may, the city clerk has sent a reminder, I believe, to all of you all that your disclosure statements are due to her office. So if you can be sure, I think, Ms. Jiggets, you've already submitted
That's
yours,
on
but
my yesterday.
excellent. If
I
you all
made this
could-
morning.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Just housekeeping, if you all could get those in.
Electronic and
Okay.
lovingly chastised, bring in the originals.
During the week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. If we will now hear the motion to go into closed session.
Resolution of intent to meet in closed meeting. Whereas the Virginia Freedom of Information Act provides that the Board of Commissioners may hold closed meetings for certain purposes set forth in paragraph 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia of 1950 as amended code, and whereas the Board desires to enter into a closed meeting for the purposes set forth below, and whereas in compliance with the requirements of the code, the topics to be discussed are set forth below, and subparagraphs of paragraph 2.2-3711A authorizing discussion of the topics in closed session are set forth in parentheses after each topic. Now therefore be it resolved that in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and the above referenced sections of the code, the Board of Commissioners shall meet in closed meeting on December 15th, 2015 for the purposes of discussing disposition of publicly held real estate where discussions in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, 3335-3345 Victory Boulevard, 3, and in consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, the Commons at Portsmouth Center 7.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes,
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mrs. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
You are in closed session.